my name's Lucia Heath. I'm the CEO of Women for Election. A very, very big welcome to Melina today, the Mayor of Stonington, for joining us to talk about her journey into politics. I'm going to pause to do an acknowledgement of country. Today I'm joining you from the beautiful lands of the Bidjigal people in Sydney's eastern beaches. I'd like to pay respects to elders past and present, and also acknowledge any First Nations people watching or joining this session today. And it's my personal belief that until we reach a Makarrata or treaty with First Nations people across this country, then our ability to move forward together in harmony is compromised. So a very, very big welcome to Mayor Melina Sehr. I've been really looking forward to our session today and our preamble as well. But as usual, we're not going to start with politics to start with, Melina. We're actually going to start pre-politics. We want to really hear from you about, what it was that you were doing in your everyday life, be it family, be it career, before considering to run had even really entered your brain. Can you give us a bit of insight into who you were before you were a mayor and councillor?
Thanks, Lucia, and hi everyone, and lovely to see a number of familiar faces as well. So what was I? So I'm a Paran born, raised girl, Paran through and through. In fact, I'm an only child. I have immigrant parents coming from Europe who immigrated in the late 1950s and bought their first house in Paran, which was not a great suburb to live in back in those days. And my mum was very passionate about giving back to the community and would go to a lot of council meetings. So I grew up with, the Paran Residents Association meetings in our lounge room, and we'd have councillors come and visit, and occasionally the mayor would turn up to meet with residents, and it was like royalty was in our home. So I grew up around sort of council engagement, and my mum's commitment and passion for it, but had absolutely no interest in it at all. I loved to play sport, and I worked at Paran Market, and I worked at the local Safeway in Paran, and just to shop in Greville Street when it was very retro and hip and affordable. And look, someone that really determined, loved, I learned early on. Computers first came out when I was 15. I saw my first little Apple, when they sat in the boxes. And so loved a passion and built a career in IT systems delivery. So I'm an executive in the IT space. That's my day job. That's what pays my bills. And another sort of way to say, I also love animals. I've got a number of cats and dogs and get involved in a lot of animal rescue. That's really where my heart is. I love to bake. I do. I make gingerbreads and cookies, and can't be bothered cooking normal meals, but I do love to bake and do a lot of it for charity. So my kids are all sick of cookies and gingerbreads. They just want, a proper dinner some occasionally, but I've taught them to cook, so they're self-sufficient. And mother of 3 boys, and that sort of was living a normal life until a council election came along, and I threw my hat in the ring, and there's a bit of a story behind that.
Well, I think, thank you for providing a bit of insight into, I guess, you prior to politics, and obviously that's still you in politics as well. But I guess it's curious for our followers to always, does someone who run for office, are they, a 20-year party member before they run for office? Was it a bolt out of the blue? Was it something that was probably in the back of the mind, but then something opportunistic came? Did it take 10 people tapping you on the shoulder before you thought you'd give it a go? So talk to us about that. I guess that trigger moment. Was it a trigger moment? Slow burn, big advocate. What was it for your journey where you then went, okay, I'm going to nominate?
So having half Greek heritage, I'm a bit fiery, And when I get angry, I commit to doing something and I stand by it. So whether that's a quality or not, I'm not sure. I'm
I
still
love it.
working on that. But look, where it wasn't planned. I don't have a political bone in my body. I'm never had political aspirations. My mum used to always say to me, "I'd be so proud of you if you grew up to be a counsellor," and I'd be like, "Yeah, that's never going to happen."
Oh, wow.
And then one day, the counsellor we had at the time, I remember my mum speaking to him about a planning application next door to where we lived. And he was really rude and dismissive to her. And I was quite taken aback by and offended by the approach. Actually, it made my mum cry. And I thought, no one's going to make my mum cry. Like she's reached out to a guy that's been elected to represent her community. And I'd seen other councillors of the day who were, went on to serve 20, 30, 40 years on council, both Paran and Stonington. And to me, these were high caliber individuals. So who's this person saying to my mum that he wasn't going to help and was actually quite rude? So to placate my mum, I said to her, "It's okay. Next election, I'm going to run against him and I'm going to beat him."
Right.
And so that was like a year and a half away.
There was
But
a
I don't
trigger.
forget. But I don't forget. Like I said, when I say I'm going to do something, I guess revenge is dessert best served cold, as they say. So I nominations opened. I walked in, and this was before you had to make appointments. So I just turned up 5 minutes before nominations closed, put in my nomination, had no idea what I was walking into, had no idea about the role of a counsellor, hadn't even been in a council chamber, and nominated. And the look of shock on the face of the incumbent when he saw my name, because he recognised the surname and knew I was obviously my mother's daughter, was shock horror. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll give it a crack. So I printed up these election photos, went into all the shops, put them up all down Greville Street and Chapel Street. I didn't tell my dad. My mum knew, she was wrapped.
I
I didn't
assume
tell
he
my
found
dad.
out pretty
She
quick.
was so excited. She was like, just couldn't have been happier. And her dream was going to come true. And I just had a 3-month-old baby. So I'm walking around with the pram,
Oh
letterbox
my
dropping,
goodness.
already got enough on my plate, and had just gotten married as well, and trying to, sort of settle it into a new life. And I remember my dad coming over, and because of course I moved like a good Greek girl, I moved out of the family home and moved next door. So I ended up living next door to my mum and dad. So dad's come over and he's gone, "Is there something you want to tell me?" Because he'd been
Yeah.
shopping to the supermarket and walked down and seen vote one Melina Sehr, and he's gone, "Oh no." And he said, "What are you doing? You've just got a baby, you crazy." And I said, "Oh, you know what? I'm not going to get elected. I've just want to divert my preferences to two other gentlemen that I knew really well, very active in the community. As long as one of them got elected and the incumbent did it." And guess what? I got elected.
Oh my
And I
God.
remember making the phone call to my husband saying, just want to let you know, I got elected to council.
I'm
He was
bringing
not
in more
happy.
income.
He was not, that is not the way he saw it. He was not happy about it. And the first time the first time ever in a council chamber was to take the oath, and shell shocked. But I had great teachers and people that I had already known because they'd been very much part of a family coming to visit with the Param Residents Association, or just being engaged with my mum, who was, that big political activist that everyone was quite scared of. she'd turn up to meetings demanding things for the community, which I look out my window and I can see them. So that hard work paid off. And I, yeah, so,
Well,
and I was only going to do one term. I said, I'm just doing one term. Anyway, 7 terms later, I'm still here. So
I think that's 7-term itch. Let's come back to that in a
yeah,
moment. I think but I think, God, there's so much I want to pick apart there from the 3-month-old, because there's a lot of, we trained 1,200 women last year, and I do hear it's not the right time. It's not the right time. So to all those who are thinking that, there's somebody with a 3-month-old putting up corflutes down the main street. So kudos for that. But also, there was a trigger. So you saw bad representation. So that was
correct.
the trigger for you And we normally say there's 3 reasons why women might run. Everyone put on their flak jackets for a second because I'm going to swear. One of them is the 3 Ps. You're either pissed off, political, or passionate. Those are the 3 Ps. And it can be all 3, by the way. So possibly it was that also. And the strategy of moving next door, so you're going to have a hearty vote base, is top shelf as well. I just wanted to call that out, albeit I know that you're saying that it was for other reasons other than that. But so 7 terms later, it was only going to be for 1 term. That is a really significant contribution to public service, Melina. So let's, and there is not going to be just one thing that immediately comes to mind in terms of, when you reflect and what you might be super proud of in terms of what you've been able to achieve for your community. But if you can share with us, I guess the time in office so far between a fledgling councillor to then becoming mayor, like talk us through what that process was and what you're most proud of. Let's break it into a couple of phases there.
So first and foremost, I sat there and I listened. That was the first thing. And
Wise.
I was very privileged. I had 3 very experienced, capable councillors, all with very different styles and approaches. So I got to really look at all of them and say, okay, well, what works, what doesn't? Sorry, my kids just decided to sit on my desk, of course. It's all right. And so I had the best of both worlds, and I watched them and I learned. I still use their techniques and their styles, and some of them were, really good political players. So it was really about learning. But the more I got into it, it made sense to me. It came naturally to me, and I loved. And one thing I learned about myself is I really love to help people. And there's most of the times a solution to every problem, and I try to find that balance. And that's one thing I love, and I think women bring very well to representing whatever state of government, that compassion and that caring nature of listening and putting yourself in both sides and going, okay, that's your point and that's your point, and how do I find a balance there? And if you can't, but having those great communication skills to share with people. So I learned one thing I'm really proud of is I've gotten to know me better, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And I've made friends that are absolutely dear and will be in my life to the very end. Some we've lost along the way. Like there's a number of councillors, the 3 councillors I referred to are no longer with us. And that's also another lesson learned in life. It's like, well, what do I want to achieve while I'm here? Because I remember one of our councillors, Councillor Claude Ullen, he said to me when he told me he had cancer and he didn't have long to go, he said, I'm really annoyed with myself. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, there are all these things that I said I'd do and I never got to them, like these books that I bought that I'd read, records that I bought to listen to, and just trips I planned to take that I never did. So I always keep that lesson in my life. It's like, do it now, make that plan, because one day you're going to run out of time. So always keep that in mind with not only my decision making on council, because we used to see projects pushed out for decades. Because they were the too hard basket. Let's just get on with it. Let's move it forward. And then also at a personal level, making those, I've moved forward in decisions that I've put off, but were very important things to me. And also just that importance. You take it for granted, but I now look at Paran and where it was, where I grew up, or the area that I represented, and how much it's evolved. So Paran was a terrible area to live in when you were growing up. Like, you were working class. It was a poor area. You could buy, my dad would tell me how much you could buy all these houses for, these are houses that sell for astronomical dollars now. And even when we did the Greville Street master plan and we revitalised Greville Street, we made the footpaths wider for to make it more accessible for people with, particularly with disability challenges, and making it a one-way street, beautifying it, just opening it all up. The whole area has just evolved around that, and we've got Paran Square now. And another really, really, really proud achievement, which came at a price, but nevertheless one I am really proud of, is we had 1,000 girls in the city that played netball, like residents, with one netball court. And it was a big battle, but we ended up building a multi-purpose sports stadium in Chadstone Road near Chadstone Shopping Centre for all children and adults to play, whether it's netball, volleyball, basketball, so that's a legacy that I'm really proud of. But it was a hard fought one. And some people on the call may know that, I had, this year was a really tough year for me in my role as mayor, where I had to get an IVO out against a resident that was an objector to that proposal, after 6 years of just targeted harassment that really went way beyond political discourse, and went into a personal realm. It had significant impacts on my personal life, financially, on a lot of aspects. But in saying that, I stood up to that. I got the right decision, and a decision that other women who want to put their hand up can know that there is a line. Just because you're in politics doesn't mean that you're a target for ridicule, humiliation, misrepresentation, lies. You can actually take things like this forward, because there is now a precedent to say that, there is a line that can be crossed, which opens it up, because I know that can be intimidating for a lot of women, and it was for me. And I'm pretty resilient. I take political life is tough, but there's also a point where it goes beyond that, and that's not acceptable.
Well, let's focus on a couple of those things, because you started off with the 3 amazing councillors that took you under their wing, but then, and listening initially, but really being determined to lead through collaboration and caring. And I guess it seems clear to me that you would have built up a lot of personal currency through that, with other councillors and staff and residents through that period as well. And you used that personal currency to bring projects forward, to make sure that things weren't, lasting decades. And not everyone loves change. I think that's fair to say, Melina. But also great courage to draw a line in the sand also. And yes, just because man or woman is in public office does not mean that they are a target for just ridicule and also disparagement. So congratulations on showing that courage.
Big win.
Because it makes other women feel more capable to get involved.
Correct.
Well.
I mean, the feedback I got from not just within Victoria, but across the whole sector, and not just me, was also all the female employees, and even the employees of the City of Stonington. They were really proud that as a council we stood up, because it felt they had their own colleagues saying, wow, good on you, Stonington, for taking this fight on. So it wasn't just my fight, it was the fight on behalf of City of Stonington and behalf of the sector, because I know of a number of really capable, amazing women that either didn't run for re-election or didn't run at all because they were scared of exactly what I was facing. And now this is like, well, this is resetting and going, you know what? Put your hand up. It's still worth it, because we've now got a decision that gives you a level of protection.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if your fan base has grown even further. So and
I think more people know me than I know them, because as a result of it, because it did get a lot of publicity and so forth. That was certainly a big story at the time.
Yeah, well, again, really want to shout out the courage, but also the outcome, and then the impact that has as well. So, and make sure you send all those people to Women for Election, so that we're laser focused for 2028.
Absolutely.
So completely here to help. Look, I I only have one more question, and then I want to really just open it up. We're a small group here in the live event, but we'll have a broader audience that is welcome to send me questions also. But my question is, with multiple terms in office, there's a lot that you've seen, not just in your area, but in the evolution of, I guess, the chamber itself, and from good representation to bad representation to something in the middle. I mean, why is it important to you? Let's think council chambers, but let's also think the state parliament, and let's think federally as well. Why is it important to you that we have greater diversity in our representation, in all that diversity represents, from gender to culture to socioeconomic representation to, you know, sector representation? So over to you.
So, yeah, look, having worked with 7 different groups of people, and there are some councils where you just go, wow, like what a great council, and you're pinching yourself because we're all so different, but we just all work so well together and bring varying views and are respectful. And then you get others where, that may not be the case, and you've got to spend 4 years together. So that can be really tough. But when I think of the decisions we were making 25 years ago when I first got onto council, and they're predominantly planning decisions, whereas where we're at now is completely different. Councils start to delve into more state and political issues. There's less planning because the state government has taken over a lot more of those controls. And there's a lot of now social issues, social challenges that partially fall within the remit of local government, where we need to advocate and work with other agencies, and bringing in a diversity of different people. One, you learn more. I've learned so much from my fellow colleagues about challenges they face. We all bring our own biases, and we also bring our own points of view, and having that ability to listen, communicate effectively, and also be open-minded. And that's a critical role, that a councillor must be open-minded when they come in to make a decision, and to listen to all sides of it. Because very often, I've come up with a view when I've read something initially, but until I've heard that debate and all the different points that others bring, and when you've got a really collective group of people, irrespective of differences of opinions, if they've communicated appropriately, respectfully, you get really, really good outcomes. And that, and I said, I always, there's the old saying, storming, forming, norming, performing. And it's good that it's a 4-year term, because it gives you that time to evolve. And that's what, we're doing with our council at the moment. We're all settling in and getting to understand each other's strengths and passions, and also trying to make sure everybody achieves what they've come to the table, what they've been elected to achieve by their community. But one of the biggest things I always go back to is, the most critical thing that a councillor has to have, and I can say I've nailed this and I'm really proud about it, is that I can have differences of opinion with people that I consider good friends around that table, and we can be very diverse. And we will actively debate respectfully around the table, but walk out of there and let it go. And I remember my very first year on council, we had a fabulous, she's back on council now, Councillor Sally Davis. She was our mayor, which was a great figurehead to learn from for me in my first year. And she took me under her wing as well. And she said to us, she got to actually guest speaker in Ivan Devison, who used to be the former Lord Mayor of years ago of Melbourne. And he said this one line, and it always stayed with me, and I always share it. So I'll share it on this call. And he said, just remember, it doesn't matter what happens in the chamber, as long as you can walk out of there and have a cup of tea with your fellow councillors, even if it is just to get your own knife back. And I never forgot that. I thought that was quite funny. And it's like, it's true. and I will walk out of the chamber and say, and to people that who I adored as like almost as a member of my family, say, geez, you really got me on that debate, or sorry that you lost that one. And then we let it go.
Yeah,
And
right.
when
Love that.
councillors don't let it go, that's when it doesn't work. You end up with a toxic, the toxicity and
Yeah.
animosity builds. So I always say to councillors, you've got to let it go and play the debate, not the person.
I love that. Yeah, get your own knife back is something I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to
Yeah.
use more, but also
Yeah.
moreover the you now are playing that role. You have that stewardship on council in terms of you referred
Sharing
to
that knowledge.
the three champions that really took
Mm.
you under their wing, and so I can see how this evolution has means you're now passing on that knowledge, and new councillors came to you at the end of last year and come with it open-minded, debate internally, but keep it civil, and then let it go at the end of the day and be able to have a cup of tea. So I hope you're enjoying that role now of being able to be that person who can pass on that knowledge.
It's actually been, and I mentioned it earlier, you learn a lot about yourself, and now I'm learning. It's like, oh, when you get older, you go, oh my God, I sound like my parents.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm like, I sound like my mentors, and I've taken that place. And then you sort of reflect back on 25 years. Where did the time go? And I was recently sort of moving on my council paraphernalia into a bigger box. After 25 years, I needed a bigger box. And I'm looking at like my early election material going, and just how I've sort of aged over the years and how I've looked different. And it's almost, I can't believe it's been 25 years. I really can't.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And it makes you then stop and look at your life and going, okay, I'm 56 now. Where to from here? Where
Yeah.
I don't want to run out of time, like my friend Blake Claude Allen said. So, just on a personal level, I loved playing the drums. I always played the drums in high school, but my parents wouldn't let me play the drums because you couldn't. It was like antisocial. So I went, right, earlier this year, I'm going to take up
Learning
the
the
drums
drums.
again. So I've got a drum kit, but it's a respectful drum kit with a headphones and it's
Yeah.
electronic. But I'm having lessons each week, and things like that with through my role on council, and as time evolved and people coming and going, and I just thought, no, I really need to look at, well, where to from here, because time, it's not running out, but it moves
No,
quickly.
but the reflection is natural. And, a
Yeah.
quarter of a century on council is the right time to be having all that reflection as well. Look, what's next? Woo, I have state federal coming to my mind.